taken psychics and had them sketch, in the old days, Russian military bases that they would see. And these were correct in what was inside them. People can be aware at distances. These are senses we all have, but we haven't developed them yet. So to me, it's like playing the piano. We all have a latent ability, más o menos, but if you practice and you take lessons, you can get better at it and you increase your ability. Then you can have 8 senses or 10. Modern physics now looks at different dimensions. There are no more 3 dimensions. Not 3 or 4. Now they're talking about 10 or that there's no time, that there are multiple futures and parallel universes. Physicists call these multiverses. Amazing. The world is not what we think here. You know, and this makes sense. It's not just philosophical anymore, it's scientific. What comes in through our eyes and how we process that in our brain, these are our perceptions, but these may not be factual. Is the sky really blue? Or is that how we perceive it because the way our brains are constructed? Maybe that's how light comes through the atmosphere and the blue spectrum is enhanced and whatever. But if we had a different way of seeing things, the sky might appear red or black. So we have to step back and say, maybe our instrumentation is different from what we think, that reality is different. I think so. Reality now includes many dimensions, many futures, places where there are no time, no space, and modern physics is proving this right now. So this is very interesting to me to hear physicists talk about these things, and I'm finding in my patients. It's like the convergence of the clinical and the scientific coming together. And this is very powerful.
And do you still use, of course, the hypnosis as the way you did many years ago?
I do, because to me hypnosis is one way of going within and focusing the concentration. So that's my technique. It's very simple and it's very safe.
But is it the only way to accede to past lives?
No, there are many ways. I've spoken to body workers, massage therapists, who tell me it's about a small percentage, 1 to 3% of their patients have past life memories. Maybe working on a foot, and out comes a memory of a past life. And this may be a kind of body memory or cellular memory that we talked about. That this is another way. Dreams, déjà vu. When you meet
what happens with the déjà vu? Yeah.
Déjà vu is that feeling of familiarity.
Yes.
As if you've met a person before or been in a place before.
That happened to me sometime. No?
Yes, I think most people understand that. And this may be from a past life. It may be, it doesn't have to be, it can be from childhood, from a dream. And sometimes you can look into the future. That way you have, I think before we're born, we look over our lives to come. We see the kind of life, maybe the particular people of destiny that we meet in our lives. Soulmates, almas gemelas, other important people, important events in the life. So that when they happen, sometimes we get a sense of déjà vu. Seems familiar. Why? Well, because you saw it before, years ago. Maybe from a past life, like you were in Beijing 1,200 years ago and you just remember something about it, the way the mountains looked or something. Or it may be from the future. And I had a dream that I was in San Francisco in a particular way on the boat going around Alcatraz Island and then going under the bridge. And then years later, I was in San Francisco with my wife. We decided to take the boat, go around Alcatraz. And we did that, and I looked back over my shoulder, and I then remembered my dream. It was exactly what I saw, the same configuration, the same buildings. It didn't come from a television or from a movie. It was three-dimensional, and exactly that. That was a déjà vu from a precognitive dream. So very unusual. We all have deja vu. These are other ways to experience past lives.
We always think of twin souls in terms of lovers, you know? But there are different ways of meeting again people. When you look for them in past life memories, how do we meet people again? Do we meet the same people several times?
Absolutely. They're the same souls as we've met before, often in other lifetimes. Now they're back again. So I think we have more than one, boy, that we have like a family of souls. Maybe there's one that's so connected it's the other half of you. But if you think of it like an orange tree, that you know, the other half of your orange that's your twin soul. But what about this orange on the branch and twig, on your tree still? That's close to you. It's that soulmate, still alma gemelas. Because maybe there's another tree and another in the orchard, and you're not as close to them, but they're still connected. And maybe there's an orange tree in Miami, and they have oranges too, but that's far away. So all of the oranges on your tree are part of your soul family. Maybe there's one, the other half. And when we find that person, if it's romantic, it's very powerful. There's a sense of familiarity, of knowing this person at depths very deep. They seem so familiar to you. But even the next orange is very familiar too. And it doesn't have to be romantic. It can be, for example, this orange might be your child or your mother or your grandmother or someone like that. And you were together before. Relationships change, but the soul is the same. For example, your great-grandmother, you remember her when you were a little boy maybe. Now she's back as your son or your daughter. Same soul, but different body.
And why do we travel together, like in groups, like in orange groups?
Well, I think that we talk a lot in metaphors today. Oranges, orchards. I think we travel together because that's how we learn our lessons. They're learning the same lessons, and we owe them debts, karma, it's called, not punishment, but just ways of learning, opportunities for growth. And they know how to push our buttons. We say in English, it means like they push a button and you react. They know how to provoke us.
They are our old schoolmates.
Yes, and our teachers as schoolmates, exactly right. And so we travel together because we're learning together many of the same lessons. But we have to take elective courses too. We can't just stay with the same family. So we change. We change race, religion, we change sex, sometimes men, women. We change color. We change nationality because we have to learn from all sides. Rich, poor, physically strong, weak. We have to learn how to give love, but also how to receive love. So all of these lessons are about love and all of its manifestations, compassion, patience. These are all derivatives of love. And so this is how we learn about it. We change all of these features of ourselves. Strong, weak, red, black, green, brown, white, doesn't matter. We change in all of these ways because that's how we learn here. Rich, poor, that's how we learn about love. So we have to know also how to receive so that we know how to give. And we have to love ourselves because this is very important so that we can love others. And we have to see that we're all the same. Souls are the same. That I'm thinking of another metaphor now. I wrote about this in Muchas Vidas, Muchos Maestros. Question, how can we all be the same if we're so different? And I was about this, almost meditating about it, and an answer came to me that it's as if each of us has a perfect and beautiful diamond chest. Perfect. So we're all the same. We all have the same diamond. It has 1,000 facets. But the diamonds, even though they're all the same, some are covered more with dirt and dust and everything. And the job of the soul is to shine, clean the facets. The diamond is gleaming beautifully. Now some of us have cleaned many facets, 900, 950. But others Only a few, 10, 20. They have 950 to still clean. But the diamonds are the same. It's just the different levels. So those who have cleaned many facets, they seem to be wiser. But those who have cleaned only a few, they become no, I shouldn't say that. Those who have cleaned only a few, this is why we need politicians whose diamonds are shining brightly. They're more advanced, understanding about compassion, helping the people, about the effects of government policy on pollution, global warming, etc. And I'm not speaking about Argentina here, but some countries to the north. So I think that those who have cleaned many facets, who become wiser, these appear to be advanced souls. And those who have cleaned only a few, they seem more immature. But the diamonds are the same. Everybody eventually will clean every facet of every diamond.
We go again in a minute, just a minute. Past lives. You found that there is a intermediate state between one life and another one. That's that other side. What happens there? And there you found. The first question is what happens there, and you received through your patients some information through informations. I mean, from you call them masters or guides. What kind of knowledge is that?
I think that this is knowledge that I've gained from 26 years of examining these people, doing regressions, and studying this state that we call in English in-between lifetime state. In Buddhism, I think it's called the Bardo state. And people have different words or phrases for this state in between lifetimes, or the other side, or heaven. So that what seems to happen is a sequence of events. I'm going to summarize from all of these thousands of patients that when we die, our consciousness leaves the body. Whatever you want to call that, soul, spirit, consciousness, again, the words don't matter. Awareness leaves the body, may look down and see the body from a distance, feels no pain, because the spirit has no pain, the consciousness. Eventually becomes aware of a beautiful light, and either going through a tunnel or crossing a river, finds the light is replenishing, it refreshes, so that all your tiredness leaves, all of your illness, if you had that, gone, you're refreshed, renewed. At the light, often are relatives, loved ones, spiritual figures, helping you with this transition. And then you have what's called a life review. This to me is very important. And I hear this from so many patients. In this life review, you review everything that you did in your life. Did you help people or hurt them? How did you affect people? And you do this with masters or guides, or I call it your committee, group of wise, whatever word you want to use, masters, angels, guides, spiritual beings that have been with you for many lifetimes, before your birth, after your death. And you go over, not with punishment, not with judgment, only for learning, only for learning. How did you do? Did you deviate from your spiritual path, or did you stay close to it? And it's a very powerful lesson, because when you've helped someone in your life, and now you're having this life review, and you remember everything, you feel their gratitude or their thanks, their appreciation magnified many times. And if you've hurt someone, you feel their pain or anger many times. So it's a very powerful lesson, not for punishment, for learning. And you see all of the effects of your actions. And then you formulate the plan for your next life. You keep learning.
That leads to the next lesson.
Exactly. Because it's important that this lesson, an understanding that you can't accomplish all of your lifetime. It's too much. Patience, compassion, love, charity, all of the nonviolence, all of these lessons. So how quickly you want to learn them is up to you. There's no time on the other side.
There is a possibility of doing better. That's our part of free will.
Yes,
when
exactly.
You can choose to be doing better things or not.
Yes, and you can become enlightened at any moment. This is the free will. You can speed it up, you can accelerate the process. So people ask me, for example, about Hitler or Stalin or those people who have killed thousands and thousands of millions of other people. And I say their life review must be hell. That's what, because they have to go through every person that they harmed and every relative or loved one of that person, all of the effects, and make it up to them. So many future lives to make this up, I believe. I haven't found these people in my work, so, but many, many lifetimes to make up to those people that they harmed, that they hurt. And that's what we do. So the other side is we continue our learning, and then we come back to see if we've learned our lessons. Did we learn to be more loving, more compassionate? When you learn these lessons, you graduate, and you don't have to come here anymore.
And what happens then? If you don't have to come, you choose, or you go somewhere else,
I think a couple of things. One, you can come back here, but voluntarily. You don't have to. In Eastern religions, this is called bodhisattva, but it's in all religions. A master comes back, doesn't have to, but comes back to help humankind. There are other schools, other dimensions where you keep learning, keep growing, becoming more and more godlike. More and more you accelerate. So maybe in universes at a higher vibration than this one, there's no illness, no sickness, no war. People communicate telepathically. And that's the next level up. And maybe above that, we don't even need bodies. We're just light, just energy. And maybe above that, the light starts coalescing and has properties we don't even comprehend yet. And we grow and grow and grow, reaching higher and higher vibrations. What's interesting to me is that when I look into future lives, I see that this also is coming about, as if in our future we'll eventually come to those higher dimensions which we reach in between lifetimes or in other dimensions. They seem maybe at some point in the future to merge, to meet.
And are we going to in the future, are we going to reach these new capacities of connecting without words and to traveling with less physical needs and other ways of connecting?
I think so. I did an interesting, to me, project, also using hypnosis and in groups. I did progressions, going into the future, instead of regressions, looking at the past. Now with more than 7,000 people. And I take large groups of people progressing, going into the future to 3 time periods. About 100 to 200 years from now, 500 years ahead, and 1,000 years or more in the future.
You will explain me that in the next blog, okay?
In the future?
Yeah,
See?
just the small future. We are talking about progressions. How can we do progressions, and what is going to happen in our future lives?
Yes, because as physicists know, time is not an absolute constant. Einstein was right. Time is relative. And at some point it appears that maybe it even stops or slows down or disappears. So when I regress these thousands of people, or progress them, I still put them into the hypnotic state, but then I take them forward and I say, okay, now you're going through a door into 200 years from now, or 500, or 1,000. And at the end, they filled questionnaires. I wanted to see if there was a consensus. Did they agree on anything? And I found that the most consensus, more than 80%, more than 80%, agreed in the far future, the 1,000 year. They saw a world that was very green and idyllic, beautiful, without wars, without violence, without illness, and people communicating telepathically. That's what you were asking me. And yet the population was much reduced. Many people told me about the existence of desert museums. That is, there were no more deserts on the planet, so they needed museums to show what deserts were. I never would have thought of this concept on my own. So, but the people told me in the questionnaires, and I was surprised many people did, but very, very commonly that the population was less, many fewer people. And it appeared that that happened in the middle period, about 400 or 500 or 600 years from now. Something to diminish the population. But what it is not set yet. Still, there seems to be free will there. In the 100 years from now,
100 years from now,
to 200, it was more of the same. Nothing, I didn't find the cataclysm. The world doesn't disappear in the year 2012 or 2020. There are disruptions, but we always bounce back. And something in the middle period happens so, and we still have to decide what that will be to decrease the population. Eventually the world will be idyllic, beautiful. But that, more than 80% of people are describing that probable future. But is it benign what reduces the population? For example, to me the most benign way would be people decide to have fewer children because the planet doesn't need 10 billion people or 8 billion people. Maybe it only needs 1 billion. Can get along, use the resources better. The second most benign way is decline in the fertility rate. Maybe people can only have fewer children, not by choice, but because the fertility rate is diminished. This is already happening. By the way, already measurements are that the fertility rate in general is decreasing because of the toxins in the environment and other reasons. Or are we going to choose a more violent way? Wars, terrorism, plagues, illnesses, ecologic disasters, yeah. These can happen too, but not for a while. We don't have to worry about this. Except if we've reincarnated 400 or 500 years from now, and now we're back and we're in the middle of this time. So my choice, since we probably will be reincarnating, and it will be us again and our soulmates, let's choose the most benign way. Let's just have fewer children.
Let's do it better. Let's do it in the best way.
The best way.
We'll meet again then, maybe, to talk about this.
Yes, but eventually we'll meet in the far future, and we'll say, what a beautiful world this is, how green. They describe people not living so much in cities, that cities have become smaller with much more green. And it's a simpler and yet very healthy way of life, and more meaningful. And still, diseases have been conquered. Industry is now taking place off the Earth's surface, outside. So there's no pollution here anymore.
How can we learn from children?
Well, children, to me, and I should say in the beginning that many children remember their past lives. We have thousands of cases of children without hypnosis, but spontaneously they remember past lives. But they tend to forget when they get to about 5 or 6 years old. So when they're 3 and 4 and 5, they're remembering, and then it starts to diminish and forget. Children can teach us because they remember. They
are closer.
They're closer. There was a book in English, it's called Everything I Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. Because and it's a very interesting book because it talks about how did we act in kindergarten? Well, we held each other's hands to cross streets or for safety. We helped each other. And we can see in children a simpler life, that it's not deceitful, it's not dishonest, it's very basic. And to me, this reminds me that it's not so complicated to be an adult. It's not so complicated in this world. Maybe we only need 4 things, which I think are education, health care. I'm being a politician again. Education, health care, housing, and food. So education, access to health care, medicines, and shelter, housing, and food for everybody. If everybody on the planet had those four things, this would be a much happier place. Fewer wars, no poverty. I think we can accomplish this if we really put our will to it. Healthcare, education, housing,
shelter. Yeah.
yes, and food. So that we can
so
learn
simple,
from children.
It's so ancient.
It's so ancient. And what do children need to be happy? These four things. And they play. And we don't play enough. We get too serious. We get too complicated. And we only need those four things. But we worry so much. So children can teach us to see life fresh, alive, spontaneous. We can learn those things. Children remember their past lives, many children, so they can teach us about those things too.
And when children meet or talk about the invisible friends, are they talking about this?
Sometimes they are, and sometimes they're very important. I remember a mother who got in touch with me. She lived in St. Louis, Missouri, in the United States, and she was upset because her mother had died recently. And she had a young daughter, a little girl, and this was the little girl's grandmother. And they were very close. But the little sad. She wasn't depressed. She didn't seem to miss her grandmother. And this was very perplexing and a little frightening to the mother. So what happened was that one day the mother couldn't take it anymore. And she asked her daughter, came skipping down the stairs from her room, which was upstairs. She said, "What's wrong with you? Don't you miss Grandma? Aren't you sad?" And the child said, "No, I was just talking to her in my room. She's sitting in the chair." And then the child told the mother details about the mother's life when the mother was a child that only the grandmother knew. So you knew it wasn't a delusion. She was getting this information. But the mother thought something was wrong with the daughter because now she's hallucinating, takes her to a child psychiatrist who wants to start the daughter on medicine. So then she called me up and said, "Should I do this? Should she start on medicine?" I said, No. She's having this experience. It's helping her. It's important to her. And she told you secrets from your childhood that only your mother knew.
Don't lose that opportunity.
Don't lose it.
Yeah.
And I said, if it worries you so much, just say, "That's nice, dear." Just, it will stop after a while. And it did. She didn't take her to the psychiatrist. I'm not against psychiatrists. I am a psychiatrist, but not
in
when
another
it's
way.
normal.
At what age you can start doing past lives therapy?
I've done this with teenagers. I've done this with teenagers. I don't do it with children because it gets complicated with the parents and I'm not a child psychiatrist. I always have treated adults. But children make very good hypnotic subjects. You technically could do it with children. I don't even use hypnosis. I just talk to children sometimes if the parent is agreeable.
Agrees.
Yes. And I say, "Do you remember when you were big? What was that like? Tell me about when you were big, if you remember anything." And the child will sometimes talk about things that are not imagination. And there are many researchers. In the United States, there's a famous psychiatrist named Dr. Ian Stevenson. He's very elderly now and retired, but he collected more than 2,000 cases of children with reincarnational memories. And he documented those cases, 2,000 documented, validated cases, where he would interview the other family or the old family or find evidence that it was correct. And it's very interesting. Children often remember.
More than us.
More than us. But now we're starting to remember also, more than we used to. I think because we need to remember now. The world is so dangerous. We need to progress spiritually as much as we are progressing technologically. And so now, for some reason, we're being allowed to remember our past lives in large numbers. We have to learn not to repeat mistakes that maybe we made in the past.
That's why we are here talking about this.
Yes, this is a great opportunity to present to many people 26 years of research, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity.
Thank you. We go on and thank you. Ya volvemos con el Dr. Weiss. One life and another one appear to us in a shape, in a something like ghost shape or something like that.
Yes, sometimes this is allowed if there's something that they need to tell us or to teach us. So if there is a need there, that can be allowed. And this is also somewhat related to when you die and you have before the life review, but you're going to the light, you can be greeted by a soul too, like someone who has already died, grandmother, mother, whatever, whoever. But when they appear to you, they may not appear as they looked when they died. In other words, say that your grandmother died and she was 90 and frail and weak, and maybe her bones had deteriorated because of age, and she may appear the way she looked when she was 50, in prime and healthy, because she can choose whatever shape to come back. She chooses that. And if there is a need, then the communication is allowed, because that's very important. Not everybody, by the way, gets that opportunity. If there's no need, no. And sometimes they come back because the energy is better with one person than another. It's not a measure of love. So, for example, sometimes one sibling may be experiencing a visit from a mother who had died. And then the sister or the brother says to me, do they love her more? And I say, no, it's not about love. It's just easier for her to adjust her energy to that person. It's not because she loves her more or less or anything. It's just easier to come through that person. And so you shouldn't get jealous if your sister gets the visit but you don't.
And what can we do during this present life to improve our capacity of being better or doing things better, to climb more steps in that way?
I believe that it's knowing ourselves better and our real nature. That if we remember that we're eternal beings, spiritual beings, that the soul is us, not the body. To use metaphors again, the body is like a car, and you're the driver. So when the car wears out, you leave. You don't die, you go on. If you need another car, you get another car. And you change. Sometimes you may have a Honda, and then a Buick, and then a Rolls Royce, and a Maserati, because you're changing. Black, yellow, red, white cars, whatever. The driver is the same. You're the driver. Remember that you're a spiritual being, that your task here is to learn lessons of love and compassion. So if you become more compassionate, even a little bit, more loving, less violent, then you're progressing. And a little bit will lead to more and more and more. And that's what we can do here. And not only that, then other people react to you differently. So don't let negative emotions get in the way. Not anger, that only gets in the way. It frustrates you. It's not useful. It holds you back. It hurts you more than the person you're angry at. Not frustration. There's all the time in eternity. Not sadness or depression or grief. You're immortal. You're eternal. You don't have to be so sad. Not anxiety, not worry. These only get in the way. You're a spiritual being. There's nothing to worry about. Not in the bigger picture. You can never be harmed at that level. So if you bring more love, more compassion into your everyday life, others are going to react to you differently. You're going to teach them. You'll be a model for them. And that's how this whole process can be accelerated, as we teach each other to be more loving, more compassionate, more gentle, more patient. That's what we have to do now. The world needs this.
Maybe all the religions were talking about this in different ways.
Yes.
But some of them make a little curve to deny some of these aspects.
Yes.
Why?
Well, so much of that
Their
is...
interests in between the power of maybe.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And some religions have worked on fear more, and
Guilty. And
guilt, yes, to keep people in line. But this is somewhat controversial, it's just my feeling, is that there's really only one religion, and that's love. Because that's the common denominator of all religions. So I agree with the Dalai Lama, who said, stay in your religion. You're familiar with that, you're comfortable with that. You don't have to change your religion. They all lead to the same place, which is love. And that's the important thing, because if you look at what the religions teach, it's about becoming more loving, more compassionate, more charitable. These are all different manifestations of love. So if we think, well, there's one religion, that's love. My religion teaches about love. Stay in it, but practice it, believe in it. Love doesn't mean that people from other religions can't find, you know, the same things we're looking for. They're still immortal. All souls don't have religion. Souls are all the same. We change religion. I have done regressions myself, of course, because I wanted to experience what my patients experience. And I found that I was a Catholic priest in Scotland in the Middle Ages. I was a Muslim writer. I've been Jewish. I've been Buddhist. I've been Hindu. I've been everything. So who am I?
You're lucky because...
But we all have.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the soul is the soul. The soul is love. That's the one religion. Yes, how we get to the... There's some variations like customs, and that's fine. That's beautiful, and it's very familiar. If it reminds you to be loving, to be compassionate, then you become the enlightened soul. Then you become the master. And that's how masters have always appeared throughout time, to teach us this, whether Buddha or Jesus or Muhammad or Moses or other masters who come to teach us about love and model how to get there. It's not so complicated.
It's not.
No.
No. Well, thank you very much for coming to Argentina to teach us about this and to talk and to make us think about all of these subjects. And I know we'll meet again in this life or in another one.
Yes, and thank you, Boy, for this opportunity to reach so many people with my work and research, and I really appreciate that, because now we're in the 21st century, and this is how we teach.
Thank you very much. Ha sido una conversación con el Dr. Bryan Weiss.